Hi, everybody. It's Charlene and Kelly again, and we're going to kind of go off the beaten path with this podcast. So we're holding off on this is episode 8, but it's not episode 8 of the Soul Rise per se, our typical what we've been working on mindset and stuff. But what we're going to do is um, I introduced to Charlene the fact that, with her being a cisgendered woman or a biologically born woman, and I being a trans woman, um, that I noticed, there's a bridge that could be built between our two worlds, and I think it's better that we discuss these things so that we better understand one another and each other's worlds. And there's a couple key topics that I keep seeing on social media pop up about trans women, and one being trans women existing, and it really is formulated in the topic of what is a woman, and then there's also the ones that or is being transgender a mental illness? Should we be in women's spaces? Should we be in women's bathrooms and lockers and stuff like that? And so we're going to make a little mini series, Charlene and I, on this topic because her again being a biological woman and me being a trans woman, we'll get what we're here to do is we're not here to try to prove anything. We're here basically to give information from each of our points of view. And
To have
so
an open discussion, because when you
yes.
stop talking, that's when fear and things like that breed and fester and create problems. So between two people who trust each other and who are just going to have a genuine conversation out of curiosity and as she said, information, to see to our perspectives. So
Yes, because I keep seeing on social media these being brought up, and I think people just scratch the surface and their egos rise up, and the conversation just goes nowhere. It's really um, well, I'm right because I say so, and you're right because you say so,
yeah.
and it just gets
Oh,
nowhere, right? So
yeah,
this
right.
then, so this topic we're going to focus on first today then is going to be what is a woman, right?
Yep.
And so I'll kind of start again because I've come across this a lot. And in fact, actually, I worked a little bit of this same perspective with my with the business coach that I work with,
Oh,
because I asked that question, to her because she's also a biologically born woman, and
oh,
I was like trying to figure out, you know, what does it really, what does it mean to be a woman, right?
right.
And in all these conversations, I hear a lot of these, you know, uh, basic things like, and then people start trying to talk about biological things like, well, a woman is a person who has a uterus and can get pregnant and give birth to a child, you know. Um, and then people go, well, not all women are able to give, bear children, and not all, and women have their uteruses removed for different reasons, or, then there's also, some women actually were born without a uterus, things like that. But really, ultimately, I want to start the conversation out by saying this, you know, from my perspective, women come in all shapes and sizes, and, um, women, dress different ways. Women, present different ways. Women, live life different ways. And so, I like to think that a trans woman is just another kind of, for lack of a better term, another branch of being a woman. Uh, but what I really want to drive home for this for me is the new uh, respect that I have for women, having transitioned and socialized as a woman, you know, understanding what women go through, you know, just what it takes to put themselves together. Whether it be doing their makeup, accessorizing, what clothes they're gonna wear, how they're presenting in themselves in the world, you know, um, how people react to them, when they have their own opinions, how seriously they're taking, or how seriously they're taken, even up to going, being born biologically male, I didn't have to worry about like my own personal safety. And then me and Charlene were just talking about how, when I transitioned, when you're on hormones, really quickly, the hormones, the estrogen, eats your muscle, and you become the same physical strength as what a biological woman is. And so one of the things I had to really learn to tell myself was I have to be more aware of my surroundings because if a male wanted to do something to me, I'm I'm not strong enough now to really defend myself. And that's a real threat to women. And so I had to retrain my thinking, spaces I go to, places I go to, when I go to them, whether it's a lit area, dark area, you know, just there's just so much that I learned, transitioning and socializing as a woman that I didn't, understand. And I love to also use you know, the old saying of, beauty is pain, me going through, getting my eyebrows waxed, going through the laser hair removal, you know, getting my hair colored, uh, the mental emotions that I have to deal with because my mind changed with being on hormones and stuff, rapidly cycling through your emotions. And so there's just a whole gambit of things that I come to appreciate that a woman, has to, that they live with and that they go through. So any thoughts on that, Charlene?
Um, I'm really nervous about this conversation because I'm not even sure 100% of what I think because I was telling her this on our in-between conversation, if you will, I'll call it that. Um, Ultimately, I judge a person by how they treat other life, okay? Period. How you go about your life and what you do in your everyday life and how you're treating people, that's how I'm going to judge you if I have to judge you. And there is some level of judgment there because I have to decide whether or not I want you in my life, whether it's a trans person or just a non-trans person. That's just, if it's a violent person, you're making a judgment call that that person is violent. You don't want them in your life. So I'm not a judge. I'm the last person to judge because who the hell am I to judge anybody but standards and boundaries and things. And there is a level of judgment there. Um, but otherwise, ultimately, while I have certain ways that I feel like I feel, it's not going to change the way I treat a person. Okay. I think Kelly can attest to this, especially after we had this conversation, because we haven't had this conversation before. So she doesn't even know. She just knows our interactions, and that's fine by me because ultimately that's what matters is how she treats me, how she treats others, whoever you are, right? So know that. Um, but I think that a woman can be defined by biologically. There are big differences. Giving birth is a huge thing. Yes, there are women who cannot give birth when they are born. That does not make them not a woman. They still have that. They are still that. They still have those chromosomes. When you get into studying, and I've just kind of started doing this, um, a mother is maternal, first of all. Men and women, it's a masculine and feminine energy is what it comes down to. Some people are more masculine, some are more feminine. You have that male and female kind of thing. But it comes down to a masculine and feminine energy, a maternal and a paternal energy. And when you look at how women are built, in their brains and their nervous system and all of these things, they are built to mother, to nurture, to raise their offspring. The men are built and designed, their psychological aspects, their reflective aspects. And I'm being very crude here because, again, I just kind of started diving into, I just saw a podcast where this person was talking about this differences in men and women, not trans, but just the men and women and how they react differently. Women are more sensitive when they're sleeping, for example, and wake up to more things because they're designed to be aware of when the baby's disrupted in the middle of the night. Where the man isn't they don't have that. They're more likely to sleep through the alarm or sleep through the tornado or sleep through the baby crying. They are a protective nature. They are a provider nature. So there are very real key biological, psychological, huge differences in men and women just in how they raise children, just in that aspect. And, I think that that's it. There's men, there's women, and then you have trans women and trans men. I don't know why it has to go to, like, I don't like to be called a cis woman. I am a woman. I was born a woman. I gave birth. I've been a mother. I have feminine traits. I can be in my masculine too. I've had to do that. But so why can't it just be women and trans women? Because if you talk about differential, trans is the differential between the two. But this is kind of getting into some things that are even less important, terminology, right? But I don't, like, I'm not going to, as you just call, you've said it many times that you don't hear me correcting you every time you know what I'm saying? Because again, that is also, you have to understand for me that when something triggers some sort of emotion in me, good, bad, or indifferent, I instantly am asking myself, why? Why am I triggered? Why does this have that kind of control over me? Right? Because only I have control of my emotions and my feelings and all of that. And if something outside of me has taken control of that and caused something, then there's something inside of me that has triggered that. Rather it be not an understanding, who knows? That's a very big thing to explore too. But so know that. So that's why I'm also, like I said, I don't like to be called a cis woman. I'm a woman. You are a trans woman. That is the differential. That's how you tell the difference between the two. But ultimately, you are in your feminine energy. You are in, that energy, and you lean very heavily toward that, so much so that that's where you've shifted your life, and your life has reciprocated that by showing all the things, making your dreams come true, right? So, who the hell am I to say you can't do that, or you don't exist, or, I feel like I can say you are a trans woman and not just a woman, because there are differences there. No matter what you do, there's things that you're not going to be able to experience ever, because you just are not biologically made that way. And I think that's what I have to say about that.
Great. No, I appreciate that. I really do, the perspective, because, and I've heard that before too. A lot of women go, well, I'm not cis, right? And it's just terminology, really, as you said. It's just defines. So when you're talking to somebody, you instead of going biological woman, we're just saying cisgendered woman, right? So it's not never meant as a derogatory term. I just think, you know, it's just taken that way because, again, I think I want to use the word gatekeeping for gender, but I think it's more almost like I almost feel like some women see it as a rite of passage, right? Because say, well, I went through all the pains, of going through menstruations and bleeding and I give birth, right? So you experienced all those things, and that's something that I'll never get to do. And you know, it's it's definitely. Were you speaking? Because I don't hear nothing coming.
I had hit mute so I could tell my husband to turn the water off and
Oh, I was gonna
forgot to.
say I didn't hear a word you said.
She's like, her mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out.
Right?
Um, So, okay. I was trying to gather my thought though too, because again, remember for me, I always come back into myself. So one of the reasons I'm not going to correct you when you say cisgender, even though I feel a little something rise up in me, one is because I'm asking myself why. But does that make me any less a woman? Does that make my experiences any less valid? Or, my value and my worth and all of me come from me doing the work and me looking at my divinity within me and my soul and my inner source. So anything that you do or don't do doesn't make me any less of what I am. And I think that it should be the same for you. You are a trans woman. I personally, and I don't, I never intend to hurt feelings, but I
Yeah.
personally think that that's that. You're a trans woman. and then I want to say you're not a woman, you're a trans woman. But that's exactly what you are,
Well,
though.
that's right. That is
That's
absolutely
exactly what you
true.
are, and that's okay. Be in you, babe. Be in your femininity. Be in your soul aligned self, by all means.
Yeah,
But be in that and stand on that and make that I'm not any less who I am,
true. That's
because
true.
whatever. So
Well, and here's my thought. You're absolutely right. I'll never sit there and say, you know what, I'm a woman because I say so. Because I was not born a biological woman, for whatever reason. But all I
I
ask
have
is,
a great love and respect for that. That is one of the things that I think that I struggle with, is for those that can't accept that, okay, yep, I'm this person now, but this is where I come from. And that in and of itself is a story, is an experience, is something to be shared. So I think that that makes it, the words that are coming are more real, but I don't like that. I think that it definitely gives me another appreciation and value. I don't like that either. I'm still, again, we're literally just on the fly having this conversation,
yes,
and
we
she
are.
is the first person that I've ever had the experience of experiencing a trans. And, they might have been in and out, but not on a regular basis like her and I. And, so,
So,
and my brain stopped there. So you go ahead.
okay, good. All right. So as you said, I don't believe that I'm a biological woman, whatever, right? But I still want to be seen as a
Yeah,
woman, and I want to be
yeah,
accepted as a woman
I get
because
that.
I've gone out of my way to present that way.
Yeah,
I've done the hormones, I've had the surgeries,
right.
I've done the socialization. I'm trying to be a credit to women,
Sure.
okay? Um, And I think, one of the things people don't stop thinking about too is because of the fact that I've lived both sides of the genders, right? I have experience from both, you know, I'm a facet of, or a wealth of knowledge for women to go, tell me, you know, more, help me understand men better,
Right,
or how we're not doing this well with men, or how men are not doing, and I can do vice versa. I can talk to
right.
men and tell them the same things.
Sure.
So because I've experienced both sides of the house.
Right.
So I think to me, I'm proud to be a transgender woman.
Good.
And, it's just that society, because of their
Yeah.
fears and what they've been told, want to project that we're something to be feared, that we're some kind of monster, we're mentally ill, you know, and look, I understand that there's nuances because the world is just really learning about us. Not that we haven't existed for throughout all the world, all the time, in the world. It's just it's now to the forefront. And we do
Really, I would be curious to know some historical figures.
sure. I'll definitely send you some because
Yeah,
all throughout history, throughout time that life has been around, there's been trans people and it's been documented. And
great.
just like there's been tons of trans women who have made great achievements to mankind. In fact, I think one of the big ones that's off the top of my head was a trans woman who she was some kind of scientist, whatever, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head now, but she helped develop the cell phones that we use today.
Sure.
I mean, there's been some great trans people that have contributed to society,
I would
um,
be curious to see from hundreds, thousands of years ago. Like for me, the last 200 years, maybe more even, has been very programmed. There's been a whole, like, and again, this is information that you can search out yourself through the Rockefellers and JP Morgan Chase, and just even further, even Ford. Um, you know, they designed schools. Rockefeller designed schools. This is something from his own mouth you can look up and read on. Designed the school system because he didn't want a nation of thinkers. He needs a nation of workers. That's huge. That's huge. They are controlling that conditioning we talked in previous episodes. being conditioned and programmed and controlling what, children are indoctrinated essentially. So like I said, I would be curious to know from before those times, before the Industrial Revolution and in ancient times, because let me tell you something that I know when it comes to gender. Um, I believe in aliens. I'll just summarize it like that. Okay. That has expanded for me. First of all, I've always felt like for us to think we are the only beings in the universe is so arrogant and absurd. Like, are you serious? How arrogant of us to think there is nothing else out there in the universe that is life. I've always felt that way. And then as I got older and started experiencing and reading things, including psychedelics, for example. And there's lots of information on those. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, I read a book. Let me get it. Hold on. Hold on. I'm here. Okay. And I've done other,
Well, let me ask you this
other
real quick.
readings
Are
and
you
watching.
hinting, are you leading into the part of gender being constructed by humanity?
No, I don't know that
Or
so
as a construct, not our
gender
biological
and
sex,
sex, I guess,
not our
are two
biological
different
sex,
things.
but the gender stuff. Like
I mean, right.
blue is
Gender
for women,
is you
blue is
dress
for
like a
boys.
girl. Thank you. Thank you. I need the honey and my muffin if you're so inclined. Um, no, but that's another conversation. So Graham Hancock, Supernatural Meetings with the Ancient Teachers of Mankind. So he explored, you must know about cave art, right? Anything?
So
No?
you've seen Native Americans, right?
So Native Americans, that's so they have cave art. But I'm talking this art is ancient,
Hmm.
ancient, thousands. Um, that's not enough honey, FYI. You're good though. Um, there are drawings in caves that are ancient, that are like the gray aliens. That's what they, when you look at them, right? And when you look at stories of the gray aliens, and I say I do it like this because I know that's weird. People are like, what? But again, I've done a lot of reading and watching and different things like that. Um, when people talk about the gray aliens or they're like abductees talk about the gray aliens, or when you see the gray aliens on as cave art on the walls, in the ancient caves, there are no body parts that define. There is nothing you can tell by looking at them whether they're masculine or feminine, male or female. There is nothing about them, right? So that's something that I'm aware of. Like, okay, if these are real beings, which I think that that's in another conversation, but there is nothing, these ancient drawings, there is nothing to indicate. However, when you talk to abductees, for example, and they talk about their experiences with them, they talk about a masculine feminine energy. They talk about a maternal versus a masculine energy, and that these beings, they have this felt very maternal to me. She felt very, and they'll use she because mother, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so who are we to say that that's not what we're evolving to, right? That's not us millions of years in the future. You don't know because we don't know. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
so gender is I, I didn't even so for me gender and sex was always the same thing because I didn't care. I didn't know. You're man, you're woman. That's that. You know what I mean? Male, female. That's that. Woman, whatever. Um, I definitely understand now, especially when you're speaking biologically and ideologically, it's gender. But there are gender differences. Again, when you go back to ancient civilizations, that's not to say that we cannot evolve. However, when you go back to ancient civilizations, mothers took care of the home and the hearth, and you know what I mean? They had that instinct and that nurturing and all the home and hearth, and sewed the clothes, and all this is what mothers did. females, if you want to, you know what I'm saying? And the men went out and hunted and brought their food in and provided and things like that. So there is a clear difference. Again, also back to biologically and psychologically, but I kind of feel like I'm getting on a
So
tangent. So I'm going to
I
stop.
see. Yeah, well, so I see it. I definitely see a difference between sex and gender because
I mean,
sex
I
is
definitely I see
your
now,
physical
but
characteristics that you were born with and like the chromosomes you're born with, but gender is more a social construct because
mm,
we were told how to act. We were told what belongs for women versus what belongs for men. And
right.
although
I agree.
the
Yeah,
bodies are different, and so you would just naturally kind of have those
right.
attributes as being born
Yep,
biologically female versus biologically male, then yeah, there's a little bit of that tied into it as
right.
well. Um, but ultimately, you know, I don't really personally care how you define what a woman is because I think there's just so much variation. What I really concern myself about it is again is this is going, you know, um, I understand. I have a level of understanding um, of the things that you being born a biological woman gets to do or goes through versus what I have. Yet at the same time, like I said, I'm not oblivious to saying, I don't, you know, I'm okay to say that I'm not a woman,
Right.
in the sense of being born in that way
Right.
biologically.
I think that that's a huge part of where a lot of animosity comes from in society is there are those that don't have that connection. And that's to me a disillusion. Be you, baby. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
address you as female and girl all the time because I
Right.
see you
Yes.
that way, right?
Yes.
And for me, that's where I worry a little bit because if you tell me, then I'm going to do my best to be that. Like if I'm calling you he because that's how I see you and you're
Right.
like, "Okay, Charlene, I will work on it and it will eventually not be an issue and it'll be she." Do you know what I mean? Depending on how I
Mhm.
see you, right?
Yes.
I see you as female. Do you know what I mean? The way
Yeah.
you present as female. So it just is natural for me. But I also don't want to be for those of us who something from our side, for example, be talking to someone and either not know or any variation of that and speak incorrectly and have
Mhm.
someone freak out. Like
Right.
that's,
Well,
do you know what I mean? Come on, let's
yeah.
be civil, let's be human. But I think that I kind of digress. I think that that's where a lot of animosity might come from is from that disconnect that, yep, I'm a trans woman and I'm okay with that. I'm
Yes.
okay with not having experiences that biological woman is going to have
Right.
because that's just how it goes.
Because I
That is
think
very
there's
different. And I think that makes a huge difference in the way others are going to react to you, if you will.
yeah. And I think there's there should be a sense of pride.
Yeah.
And I'm born a woman, and I mothered children, Yeah, I'd be freaking proud too if I was able to do that, you know? And so, for you to hold on to going, I am a biological woman. Okay. It's kind of like a rite of passage kind of thing, I guess, I say for lack of better terms, but
Yeah.
same thing. It's like going, I've gone through a lot of things to change myself,
Right.
to align with what's inside me and to be,
Right.
you know, looked at and treated as a female.
Right.
Um, and I do get treated that way. I mean,
Right.
literally, like, it took time, right?
Sure, sure.
Because I had to relearn everything. I had to relearn
Right.
mannerisms. I had to relearn, you know, how to dress. I had to relearn, I had to learn, you know, the hormones change our minds, how our minds think and operate. I get all the same emotions and stuff, and you know, again, I had to learn how to do makeup and do my nails and hair and again everything. I try to present fully as a woman and to be treated that way. And I try to be a credit to what it means to be a woman.
That's important. That's important. It's a far cry from some of these out there that I won't name
Yeah,
names
you're
on
absolutely right.
TikTok
Because there's a
that
lot
are
of,
really just making a clown of it all. You know what I mean? And
yes.
that's the problem with I think social media is great. Look, we're here now. I think social media is great. I use social media. It needs to be used as a tool, not a toy. Let me throw that out there. That makes a huge difference in how
Yes.
you approach it. But the same with the news, which I haven't watched the news, so I haven't had cable in a decade probably. I stream what I want to watch, and that's that. Um, but it focuses only on one thing, period. And it's the same with this topic, is it's focused so much on the clowns, or the malevolent
Yes.
people, people in there, and that's all one see. And so then you get this again, it's a programming, okay? Because ultimately it comes down to, we're human, that's that, we have feelings, and how are you treating people, how are you going out into the world and being a benefit to society and your community, and how are you doing that? That's what should matter. And none of us, most of us, I shouldn't say none of us, focus on that, and we focus on what we're fed, and then we don't do any digging or talking with anyone, and then we just run on that. And I think that, I don't even know what I was going to say there. I think that that's where a lot of animosity comes from, is that disillusionment,
Yeah.
and then of course being fed that constantly and not looking at the whole picture. So,
Right. And I think, again, it triggers me every time I come across on social media when I see both bad sides of both,
yeah,
because
yeah, right,
it's like going, oh my gosh, if you could just release the emotions,
right,
put the ego away,
right.
and open your mind
Yeah,
and
get rid
listen
of
to
ego,
both.
deal with your own shit,
Yes.
and have a
Yes.
true conversation.
Because, again, like I said, ultimately the main point I want to drive home here is the level of respect that
Mm,
I've come to give women, because of the mere fact that now I've lived it for, 2.5 years, fully, and not that I say that I've had all the experiences yet, but the things that I have learned, give me a whole new profound respect for women. Really does, to understand what it takes for, women to be who they are, show up in this world, and you know, um, to maintain their image, and the stuff that they go through, it's incredible. It really is. And for me to have gotten to experience both those, I feel like it's such a blessing for me, really. And I just think for me, it's highly important that women, born biologically women, hear another perspective, and actually someone that goes, you know what, I come at this with an open mind,
yeah,
and I want to build a bridge, and I want you to understand that I can understand why you guys feel the way you do and see things the way you do, and I think there's a little bit maybe more disconnect on the other side, where you all don't really truly understand us and what we go through, and that really, again, once you start medically transitioning, you know and you're socialized this way, you're treated the same way, in my mind, like I said, if you ever go back and actually look at the science and what hormones does to us, like I said, our whole physical body, like it literally ate my muscles, and now I have body fat, and it shapes my body just like a natural woman would. And my mind changed. I get the same type of emotions and things, and I think way more along the lines, as a woman than I do a man. Um, you know, there's just so much to it, that I think that biological women don't understand about us. And again, ultimately, it really just comes down to, look, I understand, I wasn't born that, biologically with the same sexual characteristics as a woman. Um, but this is who I am, and I'm a type of
right,
woman, and I just want to be treated as such, and I would love to be welcomed as such.
right. Yeah, I think that the key thing here in this conversation for me is to recognize the us versus them mentality,
Yes.
because this is again, and you're gonna get tired of me hearing me say it, but I am a human on planet Earth. Period. How We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are infinite intelligent expressing itself. I just heard something, I posted it the other day. It was an Alan Watts thing. We are the universe. Dang, man, it was so great. We are the universe doing, it was so great. We are the universe doing the thing
No
the same
pressure.
way as the ocean is doing the thing. It was so, I can't remember it now off the top of my head, and I know I have it here somewhere, but I'm sure I'm not going to find it that quickly.
Yeah.
But we are infinite intelligence expressing itself. However, your infinite intelligence, your inner source, your divinity wants to express itself, doesn't make you any less human. And this is true for absolutely anything that we see out in our world: race, sex, religion. Religion's a little tricky because if you follow some religions, it can make you do some crazy things. So that's a little tricky. But, you know, we are so divided. Just everything is meant to divide us, period.
Yes.
And it should just come back down to, we are humans on planet Earth. How are you treating not only other humans, but all the other life, including the planet? When I say the planet, for me, that encompasses everything on it. But, maybe people don't know that, but period. It's not a us versus them. And that's what I feel like is just so prevalent
Yeah.
in our society as a whole.
There's so much humanness taken out of things now.
Everything. Yeah.
And you're right. That's a huge point. I like to drive home too. In fact, I just made a posting on LinkedIn the other day about that exact one. I had to stop and pause for a second and go, I can't believe that in today's day and age, there are people who have to go and teach other adults how to treat people like humans. When when we were in
Yeah.
elementary school, we were taught, there are differences in people, right? Different skin color, different genders, different
Right.
ethnicities. There's differences, but
Yeah.
treat people the way you want to be treated, right? And it's just
Right.
basic human principles. And I'm thinking to
Right.
myself, oh my God, that's all I want to do. I just want to be treated like a human,
Human. Right.
and the fact that people are going to businesses to teach adults how to treat a trans person like a human blows my mind.
Wow. That's right. Like, I don't even know. That's why I said, when I don't know if we talked about it here or if it was before we hopped on. The question, do they exist? Like, I don't understand that question. Like, I'm like, and then you reframed it and it was like, well, what is a woman is really what, and those are two very different things though. What is a woman and do they exist? That's
Yeah,
two
yeah, yeah. But
very
that's why they
different
word
things.
it. Do trans
Yeah.
people exist?
Well, what does that? Well, and I would be curious to say, well, what does that mean? What do you mean to
It means, are we real? Are
obviously
we
they exist,
real versus
right?
being fake? Are we real versus being
Well,
fake? Is
that's a
this
very
is this a mental
loaded,
illness, or are we really truly ourselves? Are we really
yeah.
truly
I
who we
mean,
say
that's a
we are?
different question too. Real versus fake isn't really, that's another one of those, like, okay, well, what's real? You
Yeah,
start
right.
really getting into things. Do you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
start really looking at the information that's out there and ancient civilizations and oh my gosh, just spirituality and energy and frequency and vibration and those things that you can't see and dimensions and, like, what is real. So real versus fake, that's another one of those. This always, I find I do this not just with this kind of topic but in all of my life, and I think that's why I'm kind of, people are standoffish for me, is because um I know that whatever you're doing is as a result of your life and your experiences. Whatever
right.
that is, in my experience, if you're treating me good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is, whether I see it or not, whatever you're doing, but especially in interaction with me,
Mhm.
whatever you're doing or saying or reacting, whatever, has nothing to do with me. It has to do with whatever you're dealing with and not dealing with, and all of those things. And so I am quick to see that now in everybody, especially
Yeah.
if they've come off a certain way. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, okay, let me take a step back and let you take a breath, whatever. But it's the same with these people that are, first of all, keyboard warriors. So understand
Yep.
that on social media, it's hard to take anything seriously in that respect. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you have so many bots and keyboard warriors that would never come that way with anyone in real life. You know, and any variation of that. So first of all, I encourage you and all of us to remember that, take things on social media with a huge grain of salt,
Yes.
and understand too that they are coming not anything about you. It is about whatever they're dealing with or not dealing with and don't recognize within themselves. And when you
Right.
get that, when you understand those two things, then you're gonna, first of all, react less. Do you know what I mean? And be
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, okay, maybe have a little more thoughtful
Awareness.
comeback awareness for sure. Definitely awareness. But you're also going to be able to just let it go more.
Sure.
Okay, because you're going to also understand that when you're approaching things that way, those aren't the people that are coachable, if you will.
Yes.
They are
Right.
not the ones that are blasting shit out there like that actually want to have a real conversation. They're just triggered and then
Hmm.
spewing,
Right.
So
Yep. Oh, I know. Believe me, trust me. I identify unhealthy people all the time, and I know, you know what I see on social media is not the reality in the
mm,
real world. Like when I'm face to
good that
face
you
with
know that.
people, it's totally different, right?
Yeah,
But it's
right,
just again a mere fact of listening to people, defend their positions versus being like, why can't we have a just a conversation about it, and maybe I could learn something,
right,
and I don't have to sit here and, um, just you're entitled to your own opinion too, but
right.
but but I want you to be able to listen to me as well, and hear my
Mhm.
side of it, and maybe, just again, I'm here to change hearts and minds,
Right,
ultimately.
right, right.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so with that, this was a great conversation. I really loved it,
yeah,
and I can't wait
yay.
actually to do a couple more,
Glad I was worried. I
maybe
didn't
the
want to
other.
hurt anybody's feelings or make anybody mad because that's not, I don't, let me rephrase that. I don't want to be responsible for any negative
Yeah. No.
triggers, if you
Well, see,
will,
and that's
in
the
another
thing.
person. So,
Right, which is somebody eventually, which is us. We have to have the real talk
right,
and
right, right,
have that environment that you can be safe to say what you feel, and
right,
me too, and then let
right.
people judge and base on themselves and how they are and
Yeah,
where they're at.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it's also a matter of intention and where you come from. Like, I think I would like to think that you know enough by now that I am definitely not coming from any kind of place of hate or
yes.
anger or anything. First of all, that's doing me injustice because that's
Uh-huh.
the energy that I'm harboring that's causing problems within me physically and emotionally and all those things. That's a whole other podcast, right?
Yes.
But I think that that's something important I think I want people to always know about me is that 100% of the time I walk from a place of love.
Right.
Period. I have
Me too.
kills, like
Yes.
truly, because from there I can be open even if it triggers me somehow,
Right.
because I know that I love myself, again, coming from that place of love, so that it doesn't make me any less or anything like that. And, all of those things. So,
But
yeah,
this is
as
important
long
though.
as I think that's important, as long as it's understood that it's a true conversation and that there's no
Yes.
animosity and negative, energies there, because that's not something that we can deal with and have not deal with, but that's not something that we can have a true conversation when they're sucked in this negative space, so
Yep. Well, it's
yeah.
like the four agreements said, right? Don't take anything personally.
Yes, I love that you use that. I have it out. Look, I have it. Oh, where did it go? I have this basket over here because these are like my next ups. It must be on my, so I rearranged it must be on my next up shelf. I have rearranged my bookshelf a couple weekends ago to have a section that was like next up or reference things I want to go back and reference. I thought that I had put that one over here,
Uh-huh.
but a lot of my writing notebooks are over here too. So maybe it's over there. Anyway, because I want to read it again. It's been a long
Yeah,
time, and Miss
right.
Kelly
Yeah.
just read it on my recommendation. Yay. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I definitely
Good.
have to get back in because I'm a different person now too than when I read it before. So I'm
Okay.
curious to see what else it shows me now. So anyway.
See, we even threw some life coaching in there.
Yeah, right, right. Oh, I guess I did.
Yep. So, anyways, with that, thanks for listening to us, and
Yeah.
um, stay tuned. We'll do. We're just kind of like I said, starting a mini series, and we'll cover
Yeah,
some
we
more
just literally
topics.
just threw this in today.
Yeah, yeah, but I think this is needed. I think it's very necessary, and I love
Yeah.
that we each give our perspectives, and I walk away with something else new I learned today. So,
Yay.
and with
Yay.
that,
Awesome. Yeah, that's
um,
it, right?
like, comment, and tell
Share,
us what you think, and we'll make some
subscribe,
more.
all the things.
Yeah. Yes, and so, all right, guys, we'll
Absolutely.
see you again on our next mini series of Bridging the Gap.
That's right.